King, Alpha Dakari was a fierce man. Like most alphas, he stood tall and was broad-set and extremely muscular. He walked through the burning building as his men stormed the building, ripping through the enemy soldiers as he and his beta, Andrew by his side, his lip bleeding from a punch he just received from another beta who was lying dead on the ground with his head removed. Alpha! A weasel of a man cowered in the corner. Why are you doing this? We've done nothing. The king looked down at the man, a look of disgust on his face. I will ask you once, and only once, he said threateningly as his eyes turned black. Where are my sons? We don't have your sons. Please, Alpha, we. The king roared, so loudly the windows shook, and the king reached down. He grabbed the man by the throat and lifted him off the ground, and ripped the man's arm from his body. The man cried out in agony as his blood erupted all over the king. My sons! Shaking in fear, the man pointed towards a rug by the fireplace under a sofa and armchairs. Andrew and another guard Rowan rushed over and tossed the furniture aside and pulled the rug up. Under the rug was a hidden door that Andrew quickly pulled it open, and the sound of crying children filled the room, even amidst the sounds of fighting and the burning of the building. Kairos! Zane! Andrew called down the hole. Beta Andrew! One of the young boys called out, sounding relieved, and Andrew made quick work of jumping into the hole. You are no longer needed, Dakari told the man, before crushing his skull in his hands, before tossing the body onto the ground and turning back to his men, kill them all. We take no prisoners today. Daddy! The king turned back to see one of his twins being lifted from the hole, to Andrew, who placed the young 8-year-old boy onto the ground, and he ran at his father, who squatted and wrapped his arms around his shaking son, who was covered in filth, his hair knotted with sweat and blood. You're safe, Zane, Daddy's here, he whispered, before holding out his arm to his other son, who also ran into his arms. Kairos, I've got you. Alpha, there's more children, Andrew called out, as Andrew lifted him a little black-haired girl dressed in a filthy brown dress and 2 more boys. Andrew pulled himself up out of the hole and sat down next to the oldest-looking boy. Are there any more children here? No. He sold the other girls, the boy answered. Let's get them out of here. The king stood up, holding his sons, and carried them outside to the waiting carriages. He placed his sons in the largest and fanciest carriage before turning back to the other children and squatted down beside them again. Do you know where he took you from? He asked them. I'm Prince Brayton, the eldest boy answered, from Darkwood Pack. Your father's, King Carson. Yes, he nodded. I want to go home now. We'll send word to your father, the king assured him. And you too. This is Raymond. Brayton pointed to one boy. He's from your pack. And that's Alex. His parents were rogues. He doesn't have a pack, and he can't talk. The bad men cut his tongue out. Show me. The king gently grabbed his chin, and the boy opened his mouth. Don't worry. Once you're old enough to shift, it will grow back, he assured the scared child, who looked relieved. And if you want to stay in my pack, you can. And who is this little one? The little girl cringed into Brayton, who hugged her in comfort. She's Sirena, but she likes Siri. Her mommy and daddy were rogues too. Well, Siri, you can stay with us too. He smiled and gently touched her arm. Andrew, get the children in the carriage. I'll shift, and Enzo will follow behind. Come on, kiddos, Andrew ordered, and led them towards another carriage, and they quickly slipped inside. The king stood up and shifted into a massive black wolf that shook his fur, and he gave a loud howl to inform the troops to head out, before he moved to the back of the carriages. The group took 2 days to get home, having to camp overnight, before continuing on, finally arriving back at the King Pack, the Silver Shadow Pack. And the first pack member they saw was Luna Sophia, a beautiful blonde with a curvaceous figure. Her usual gentle face was streaming with tears, and dark circles under her eyes. It was clear she hadn't slept well since her sons were abducted. Zane! Kai! She screamed as she ran down the path, while the guards quickly stepped out of her way. Mommy! The twins cried out in relief as they jumped from the carriage and all collided and stumbled onto the ground, but the queen didn't mind. She just grabbed her sons' little faces, kissing them over and over again, as a young man walked over to them with a little brunette tagging along behind him. Welcome home, brother, he greeted the king. I'm glad you found them. The king shook his brother's hand before he sat down and wound his arms around his little family. Thank you, Dak. His mate wept and continued kissing her boys. They're safe now, my love. I'll never let anything happen to them again, I promise. While the king was busy with his family reunion, Andrew took the other children inside to have a proper bath. And for the rogue children like Siri, having a bath was a luxury, and she never wanted to get out. And the maid was forced to pull the screaming child from the bubbles and warm water. Over the next week, the children seemed to cling together, and when King Carson arrived to take his son, no one was sadder to see him than Siri. She cried the whole time they were saying goodbye, and Brayton even begged his father to let her come with him, but he refused. He wouldn't allow a rogue child into his pack. Devastated, Brayton took out a small pocket watch he'd managed to hold onto during his abduction, and he secretly placed it into Siri's tiny hand and kissed her cheek. As long as you have this, I'm with you, he told her. And when I'm king, I can come get you, and you can live with me forever. You promise? Siri asked as she sniffed and wiped her face. I promise. He smiled and kissed her cheek again. Bray, come along. His father called out impatiently, with no hint of relief at seeing his child again. Brayton just rolled his eyes. I'll miss you. I'll write you letters, Siri promised, but Brayton giggled. Well, I guess you should learn to write then, he told her as he climbed into the royal carriage glittering in gold and other gems. King Carson didn't do things by halves. Are you sure you don't want to stay? King Dakari asked. You only just arrived, and the bastard that took our children is still eluding us. If we were to work together, we could. I can take care of my own son, he cut him off. And I will send out my own troops to track this dog down, and when I find him, I will have him skinned, and I will hand his pelt in my study. King Dakari frowned. As you wish. My men will follow you for your protection, until you are out of my territory. Do as you wish, King Carson told him, before slamming the door of the carriage shut. Geo, he shouted at the driver, who immediately whipped the horses to get them moving. Siri started crying again, but King Dakari squatted next to her and lifted her up. Don't worry, little one. You can stay with me and the Luna, he told her. He'd grown very fond of the young girl over the past week, and he and his mate had decided to foster her until she was old enough to take care of herself, or until she'd found her mate. Would you like that? Siri nodded and wiped her tears away. Really, Alpha? Really, come on, sweetheart.